Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're tackling entrepreneurship.
Nice.
Yeah, and we've got a really interesting collection of articles here. They cover a lot of ground, like everything from, the basic definitions
Right.
to some pretty thought-provoking stuff about the future of business. So,
Definitely.
yeah, should be a good one.
Yeah.
By the end of this, who knows, maybe you'll even be, sketching out your own business plan.
You never know. What I found interesting about these articles is that they don't just cheerlead for entrepreneurship.
Right.
They really dig into the real complexities of it
Yeah, totally.
from both, a personal and economic standpoint. So
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with the basics then. What exactly defines entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Is it just anyone who starts a business? Or is there more to it than that?
Yeah. One article made a really good point about this. It basically argued that true entrepreneurship, it's not just about opening a shop or
Right.
starting any old business. It's about seeing an opportunity to create value where others haven't. And that often involves taking a calculated risk, of course, and disrupting the existing way of doing things, the way things have always been done.
So it's more about innovation than just running a business day to day.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of these articles highlighted that entrepreneurs really need a specific set of skills like resilience,
Right.
adaptability,
For sure.
thinking outside the box. And they also mentioned this idea of creative destruction, which,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a pretty powerful concept. Essentially, it's about how innovation disrupts those existing markets and kind of forces change in a way. One example they gave is how ride-sharing apps like, Uber and Lyft completely upended the taxi industry.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of that.
So it's not even enough to just have a great idea. Entrepreneurs need to be ready to shake things up a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. But it's not about being disruptive just for the sake of it. It's more about finding that balance
Right.
between their vision and the reality of the market. One artist will share this cautionary tale about a company that had this amazing technology,
Uh-oh.
but they totally misjudged market demand. They were so in love with their invention, they forgot to ask if anyone actually wanted to buy it.
Oof. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. Okay, that makes sense. But it also seems kind of tricky to navigate, right?
Sure.
How do entrepreneurs balance that internal passion, with what customers actually want?
Well, the articles talk about the need to do thorough market research. Don't just rely on your gut feeling.
Yeah.
They suggest tools like this opportunity canvas analysis framework.
Interesting.
It helps you map out everything from customer needs to revenue streams and, the whole 9 yards. It seems like a really practical way to avoid that pitfall of, building something nobody wants.
So it's almost like having a roadmap for your idea. I like that. But even with a great idea and a solid plan, there's still that big hurdle of, money.
Right.
How do entrepreneurs actually fund their ventures?
Well, the articles cover the usual suspects.
Right.
Bank loans, venture capital, and of course, crowdfunding is becoming increasingly popular.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's this fascinating point about the role of hot money in today's startup landscape.
Hot money. That sounds a little dangerous.
Well, it can be. It's basically capital that's looking for quick returns, often flooding into these trendy sectors.
Oh, okay.
It can lead to inflated valuations, especially for those, unicorn startups we hear so much about.
Yeah.
But while that can be tempting, it's also a good reminder that sustainable businesses, they need more than just hype.
Right.
They need solid revenue models.
So it's like a bubble that could burst then if that hype dies down.
Exactly.
Okay. That leads to another concept that these articles keep coming back to, this idea of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Yeah.
Right. What exactly does that mean?
Think of it like this. A plant needs the right environment to thrive, right?
Sure.
Good soil, sunlight, all that. It's the same for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
They need a supportive ecosystem with access to resources, mentorship, and a culture that encourages risk-taking.
Gotcha.
Some of the articles specifically highlighted the unique dynamics of the Asian market, where rapid technological advancement is creating huge opportunities. But it also comes with complex regulations to navigate.
So it's not just about individual grit then. It's also about the environment they're operating in.
Exactly. And these articles go even further, arguing that these robust entrepreneurial ecosystems are actually crucial for overall economic growth.
That's interesting. Okay, so makes sense. Like, strong economies need those innovative thinkers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But even with the right ecosystem in place, like, things can still go wrong. And actually, these articles spend a lot of time on why ventures fail.
Right.
What are some of the, like, the big reasons that they highlight? Well, they outline 5 major pitfalls.
Okay.
Lack of market demand, which we kind of already touched on.
Right.
Poor financial management. Having the wrong team. Failing to adapt. And losing sight of the big picture.
It's a lot to keep in mind.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. They actually give a real-world example of a company that, they had this fantastic product, but their marketing strategy was just, like, stuck in the past.
No.
They just couldn't adapt to how customer preferences were changing, And it ultimately led to their downfall, which is, kind of a shame. But it happens.
Yeah. So it's this constant balancing act then, huh? Like staying true to your vision, but also being flexible enough to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very dynamic process, and rigidity can be fatal in the entrepreneurial world.
Right.
These articles really emphasize that.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about like the business side of things.
Right.
But these articles also get into, the human side of entrepreneurship.
Right.
Like what kind of personality traits did they focus on?
One article had this quote that really stuck with me. It said, "The best opportunities often arise when you least expect them." And, they argued that entrepreneurs need to be opportunistic. Able to spot those unexpected moments and, pivot their plans accordingly.
It's almost like they need a sixth sense for opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Well, and it ties into that whole adaptability thing we were just talking about.
Totally.
They also talk about this, like, drive for control over one's own future.
Okay.
And that seems like a big motivator for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're not content with just following someone else's path. They want to forge their own.
Yeah. That entrepreneurial spirit is definitely contagious. But, let's be realistic. It's not all like sunshine and roses, right? These articles also touch on the pros and cons of actually working for a startup.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the things they highlight?
Well, they paint a pretty balanced picture, I think.
Okay.
On the plus side, there's that potential for rapid growth. The chance to, like, learn a ton in a fast-paced environment. And, that feeling of really making a difference.
So it's not just a job. It's like an experience.
Yeah, exactly. But, they also caution that startup life isn't for everyone.
Right.
It often involves, long hours, unpredictable workloads, and sometimes even, like, job insecurity, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like personality fit is key then.
Yeah.
Like you really need to be able to thrive in that kind of environment.
Right. And the articles stress the importance of due diligence.
Yeah.
Like before you jump into a startup, really research the company culture.
Right.
The leadership, the financials. Make sure it aligns with your values and goals. Don't just go in blind.
That's great advice. Now, what about when the entrepreneur is ready to, like, move on?
Mm-hmm.
The articles brought up the tricky topic of succession planning.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle with,
Right, it's their baby.
Exactly. But the articles argue that, like, having a succession plan is crucial for the long-term health of any business.
So it's not just about building something great. It's also about making sure it lasts, too.
Exactly. And they highlight examples of, like, successful transitions. Like, one was a family-owned business that carefully groomed the next generation to take over. Open communication and trust seem to be key in that case.
But what if there's no clear successor within the company?
Yeah, the articles cover that scenario too. Sometimes bringing in outside talent is the best move, right, especially if the company needs, a fresh perspective or new skills to navigate changing markets.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach to succession.
Right.
It's about finding the right fit for the company and the future it's heading towards.
Well said.
Yeah.
And speaking of the future, these articles didn't shy away from addressing some potentially controversial topics either.
Oh, right.
Like, the impact of pyramid schemes, for example.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. They're a huge problem, those things. Promising quick riches, but often leaving people, in financial ruin.
Yeah, exactly. And the articles emphasize the importance of being able to spot those schemes. They offer some helpful tips for discerning legitimate opportunities from those that are just, too good to be true.
It's a good reminder to always do your research, I guess, and be wary of anything that sounds like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, these articles spend some time looking ahead at the future of entrepreneurship. Like, what are some of the trends and predictions they highlight?
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really exciting. They talk about the rise of, technologies like AI,
Right.
biotechnology, sustainable energy.
For sure.
It seems like those fields will offer huge opportunities for entrepreneurs who are ready to tackle the challenges of the future.
Yeah. They also predict that globalization will continue to blur geographical boundaries,
Okay.
creating a more interconnected marketplace.
So it's not just about having a great idea. It's also about understanding how your idea fits into that larger global landscape.
Exactly. And they emphasize that successful entrepreneurs will need to be even more adaptable and forward-thinking than ever before.
Right.
They'll need to anticipate the needs of a rapidly changing world, which is tough.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Oh, have.
From the very definition of entrepreneurship to the complex challenges to the exciting possibilities that lie ahead. But one thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on, the impact entrepreneurs can have on the world.
That's a great point. These articles, they go beyond just like profit and loss statements.
Right.
They argue that the most successful entrepreneurs are driven by a purpose, a desire to make a positive impact.
It's inspiring to think that entrepreneurship can be a force for good in the world then.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us to a final thought-provoking question to leave our listeners with.
Okay, hit me with it.
So, given everything we've talked about, all this power and potential of entrepreneurship, I think the question to really ponder is this. If you could start a business that would solve one major global problem, what would it be?
Whoa.
Yeah. And what kind of impact would you aim to have?
That's a fantastic question to end on.
Right.
It really challenges us to think beyond just, profits and consider how we can use our skills and passions to make a real difference.
Exactly. Maybe this deep dive has planted a few seeds for the next generation of world-changing companies. You never know.
I love that. That's what I love about these conversations. They always leave me feeling energized and ready to, tackle new challenges. Thanks to everyone for joining us on this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. And remember, the entrepreneurial path, it's full of twists and turns. But the most important thing is to keep learning, adapting, and, striving to create something meaningful.
Kind of said it better myself. And hey, if this deep dive has sparked any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media, share your ideas, and, keep those entrepreneurial sparks flying. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.